Canada's ambassador to Saudi Arabia now has less than 24 hours to leave that country. The Saudi kingdom is also lashing out at Canada on the trade front, suspending all new trade and investment deals. The CBC's Catherine Cullen is in Toronto tonight and has more on these developments. And Catherine, let's begin with why this is happening.
Well, Ian, Saudi Arabia is angry that Canada has called for the release of two human rights activists with Canadian connections. On Thursday, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister sent out this tweet. Very alarmed to learn that Samir Badawi, Raif Badawi's sister, has been imprisoned in Saudi Arabia. Canada stands together with the Badawi family in this difficult time, and we continue to strongly call for the release of both Raif and Samir Badawi. Now, a Global Affairs Department Twitter account also condemned more broadly the arrest of civil society and women's rights activists and called for their immediate release. This has apparently outraged Saudi officials, who mentioned in a statement today that they were also briefed by Chrystia Freeland on this. And the result of all of it is that they're recalling their ambassador, kicking out the Canadian ambassador, and freezing trade relations. Now, Saudi Arabia has tweeted that Canada's comments are a violation of Saudi sovereignty and that calling for the immediate release of activists is very unfortunate, reprehensible, and unacceptable.
Okay, let's focus now on the activist whose arrest has set all of this off.
Well, of the two, Raif Badawi is the one who might be better known to Canadians. His wife and children now live in Quebec and recently became Canadian citizens, and his case has been taken up internationally. There have also been rallies here in Canada asking for his release. He is a Saudi blogger and human rights activist who was arrested in 2012 for being critical of the authorities. He's been lashed 50 times. His sister, Samir Badawi, is a women's rights activist who has been internationally recognized for her work. Here you see her receiving the International Women of Courage Award from Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama. She has been targeted by Saudi authorities before and was arrested last week along with another women's rights activist.
And put into perspective, Catherine, this move by the Saudi authorities.
Well, Ian, it is pretty remarkable. Pulling an ambassador or expelling another country's ambassador, it's a dramatic move. It's not really also all that unusual for countries like Canada to speak up about a human rights situation in another country, although often the language around it is a bit careful. In this case, it's interesting to note, though, that last year the Saudi ambassador did tell Canada to mind its own business on the Badawi case. Still, a reaction like this from Saudi Arabia, it is certainly a strong one.
All right, Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
We've asked the Canadian government for its reaction to the Saudi measures. So far, no response. So let's remember, the Saudis are only threatening new business. Let's see where that trade stands right now. Canada spends more on Saudi goods and services than vice versa. Last year, according to UN data, Saudi exports to Canada topped $2 billion US. Canadian exports to Saudi Arabia were less than $1.2 billion. Canada's best-known export to the country has been controversial. $15 billion worth of armoured vehicles manufactured in Ontario. Critics say the Saudis used those vehicles to undermine human rights. No indication that deal would be affected.